Hello, everyone. Thanks for coming to our session today on custom panels and how they can be an agile solution to obtaining on-demand insights. So most of you have probably heard this expression that chance favors only the prepared mind. Well, we can help you avoid one of the most common pitfalls in market research, finding the right sample at the right time. It's not something you can always leave to the last minute if you want to be successful in delivering insights. And to be honest, we're constantly planning in market research anyway. So let us introduce ourselves and we'll jump into today's topic about how using custom panels can present an agile solution to obtaining actionable insights. I'm Patty Trainer. I'm a senior director with KS&R, and I help clients obtain healthcare insights through deep knowledge and connections with stakeholders in the patient journey.
And I'm Michelle Roderick-Lee, a director with KS&R. I am passionate about helping clients build understanding and get the most out of their research. Patty and I are here today to share more with you about one way we've been able to become more agile in delivering insights to our clients. And it's really a new take on an old idea, just used in a new way.
Thanks, Michelle. So as you may be asking yourself, why should I care about custom panels? Well, one of the age-old pain points with ad hoc or custom research isn't just the time it takes to develop the materials, to gain the approvals, and to launch a project in field, but in having the right respondents participate when we need them to. From a marketing perspective, and particularly when research targets can be hard to reach and slow to respond, having a mutual commitment with the participants to do research activities is extremely helpful. So investing in a custom panel can result in significant improvements in response rates, retention rates, which ultimately helps us conduct rapid research and also give us the ability to spend more time in insights. So making more time to spend in actionable insights is kind of key to having a custom panel at your disposal. And during this discussion, we'll cover what a custom panel is, the key benefits of creating a custom panel, considerations for building a custom panel solution, and when to consider the solution into your plan.
At KS&R, we have built several custom panels, including for healthcare clients and clients in other industries. Within healthcare specifically, we have built custom panels comprised of physicians, allied healthcare professionals, patients and caregivers, and administrators. So we've included a lot of different types of respondents in custom panels. And our clients who are currently buying this solution have found it very helpful. And so we wanted to share just a very quick client testimonial with you today. This is from one of our pharma clients.
Most meaningful benefit is time savings. The ability, once set up, to shorten the traditional research timeline and questionnaire length without compromising sample or result quality. This allows not only frequent pulsing, but quick response for the business questions of the moment.
So before we get too far along with you today, let's just level set for a moment and talk more specifically about what we mean when we say a custom panel. And it's really quite simple. With this methodology, we are simply referring to this idea of establishing a pre-recruited sample of respondents who are essentially on tap for your future research needs. When we develop custom panels, they are typically for a predetermined time frame, such as a year, and they are for a specific purpose and client. So when a client invests in establishing a custom panel, the panel is only for their use. This is not something we market to other clients. It's only for the panel, or excuse me, the client who built it. It's also not a catch-all for any type of research. There are good situations for using a custom panel. There are not so great situations for using a custom panel. And we'll talk a little bit more about that momentarily. Now, you may be thinking at this point, why use a custom panel? Why not just use a good panel partner instead? And, you know, at KS&R, we often use panel partners for a number of studies, and there are certain situations in which that is the right choice. However, we have seen some really meaningful benefits with custom panels that make custom panels the better choice in certain situations. And while there are a lot of benefits, we think the key benefits boil down to speed, cost savings, and profiling depth. So starting with speed, the custom panels that we have built, we typically see very high engagement and response rates. So as I mentioned at KS&R, we use panel partners, and for those studies, we're typically seeing response rates somewhere in the range of about 2 to 10% compared to 50% or more among our custom panels. So really high engagement and responsiveness allows us to field studies very quickly. So we are cutting down on our data collection timeline for an individual activity. And as you might expect, since we are pre-recruiting the respondents up front, we recruit them once and save time on each individual activity, by not having to recruit them fresh each time. Similarly, by only recruiting them once, there are some cost savings that we're able to pass on to our clients because we're paying recruitment fees once up front, which is really important as you think about harder to reach and harder to find respondents. And lastly, profiling depth is a really nice benefit that we see with custom panels. When initially establishing a custom panel, we're typically sending respondents through a recruitment screener and profile questionnaire to establish detailed profiles up front. And then as we field additional activities, we're always adding to and building on that information. So we end up with really deep profiles of our panel members. So there are a lot of benefits, but as I said before, custom panel isn't always the right choice. And I will pass it back to Patty to talk about a few situations where a custom panel is not the right choice.
Yeah, thanks. So there are definitely occasions when you would not want to use a custom panel, and it comes down to when you need an unbiased sample, a custom panel may not be the right solution. When you need a representative sample, this may not be the right solution for you. Typically, a custom panel is a little smaller, more niche, and it may be actually based off of a client target list. So just consider that it may not be appropriate if you need a representative sample to use a custom panel. Also, it may depend on the disease state. So if it's a disease state where identifying potential respondents is plentiful versus a rare disease state, then you may want to just use a good panel partner because they'll be able to get you that sample fairly quickly every time. So think about people that may have allergies or asthma versus people with, a rare oncology, rare cancer condition or other rare disease state. There may be reasons why you would not want to use a custom panel. It'll save you money in the long run. And certainly if you need large sample sizes, that's another reason that, custom panel may not work, because typically a custom panel is a little bit smaller and it isn't based on thousands of participants. It's usually, a couple hundred or less in our experience. So I'm going to turn it over back to Michelle about when to consider a custom panel.
So as we've been talking, there is an initial investment in building the panel, but once that's done, we are using custom panels for a range of objectives, some of which are shown here, and I'll just hit on those quickly, starting with projects that require a rapid response time. This has certainly been one of the key ways in which we've used custom panels, for example, with a new product launch. As we all know, tracking the launch of a new product can be very time sensitive. End clients are very eager for data and insights, and other methodologies such as ATUs can often take months to get data back. So with our custom panels, we've been able to track some of the more tactical in-market initiatives going on to support product launch and deliver that information to the end clients who've worked hard to launch the product, of course, in a very rapid time frame, often in terms of days versus weeks. Pre-testing or planning prior to larger scale qual or quantitative research is another great use. such as pilot interviews or other types of kind of a gut check on stimuli or something like that prior to a larger investment in larger research is also a great way to use custom panels. Open-ended insight development, such as ideation and brainstorming. Once the panel is established, we are regularly using qualitative and quantitative methods. Projects that require a longitudinal analysis, so measuring KPIs or other important metrics over time at not only the total level, but also at the respondent level is possible with custom panels. And then lastly, iterations such as revisions to stimuli as the team is developing those. Custom panels make it possible for really the same participants who weigh in on initial stimuli to provide feedback again on subsequent changes or improvements. So custom panels have been a great way for us to help our clients and support them as they iterate through materials development very quickly and at a low cost. So I know these are a lot of different use cases, and that really speaks to the fact that once established, there is a tremendous amount of flexibility in terms of how a custom panel is used. And so with that, I'll turn it back to Patty to talk about some of the key things that you should consider if you are thinking about establishing a panel. And that's really due to how it's going to be used, driving the design of each panel.
Yeah, definitely. So there's are definitely things you want to think about up front. So the first thing is, what is the purpose for your research? What do you need to accomplish? So I think, as Michelle has already said, the business needs should always drive the design of your custom panel. This helps to set up the framework and the terms of engagement with the panel itself. What information gaps should the panel fill? So knowing that will help drive the methodology you use. We've talked about activities. These are, maybe an activity could be qualitative research, followed by another activity, which is quantitative. The activities could be a series of waves for longitudinal tracking, but understanding what you need to learn and ideate on the types of activities you could conduct with the panel really helps you set up the panel and then leads into the length of the engagement itself. So how long do you think you're going to need the panel? This could be like 6 months, a year, perhaps 2 years. This is important to consider because when you set up a panel, you're creating a relationship with panelists with this custom panel. And it's important to make sure that they're on board and commit to exactly what you're going to need them for. So you don't want to say it's a 6-month commitment and then end up carrying it over 2 years, unless you go back to them and say, hey, do you mind if we continue this engagement? And if you have a good relationship with them, I'm sure they'll be happy to do that. So considering how long you're going to need that is also important. When you consider your purchase order, you want to make sure you amortize the costs over the length of your purchase order and make sure the expensive cost of building a panel is certainly covered by the activities you plan throughout the course of the engagement. So it's important to understand that on a couple of fronts. So of course, who should we recruit? How many do we need? So let's start with who you need in the panel. So like we said, it's typically people that could be, off a client list. It's a custom recruit. They may be hard to find, not easily located. So in our experience, we've even used snail mail as a means to recruit people. So you need to consider a little bit longer time than if you had their phone or email address to reach out to them. So it's not unheard of to expect like 1 to 2 months planning just in the recruitment phase to build that panel. So think about the sources. Could be, a general mailing list. That could be through associations. And I also mentioned, think about a response rate. Michelle mentioned, and this has been our experience, to get response rates as low as 50% to as high as 80%. So that's a really great response rate, pretty enviable. But if you plan for a 50% response rate every time, that means you're going to probably need at least twice as many people on your panel to be able to respond to studies when you need them. You also need to consider, do I need to infuse fresh sample from time to time? So you need to build that in your planning, you need to build that into the cost, and certainly consider how you rotate panelists if that's a need to make sure you're getting a variety of responses. So there's a lot to consider here, but last but not least is, where are you going to keep all this information? You are collecting really rich data and profile data on this panel, not only from the recruitment period, but also all throughout the engagements and the activities. You're going to be able to know how they respond. It's going to allow you to handpick people. So you want to set yourself up with a database that allows you to keep track of those profiles. So this could be simply done in Excel. You could keep track of this, but it also could be, if you'd like to set up something a little bit more elaborate, you could, or have it a little bit more turnkey, you could use somebody like Confirmit or Qualtrics, who have panel solutions to help manage and facilitate this, where they could send out invitations automatically and keep track of response and engagement and reminders and all of that within their platform. So these are things to consider. Certainly there's more of a cost, I think, probably with using an outside panel provider to help do that than building your own Excel database. But time is money, so you have to consider, do I have the time to do this? And if it's going to help you be successful, you may want to consider some help. So I'm going to turn it over to Michelle, who's actually going to give us a real live case study of how we've applied this.
We've been talking about how every panel is different and all the different things that you should consider if you're thinking about developing a panel. So we wanted to be sure to share a real life example with you of this methodology in practice. So a pharma manufacturer came to us in preparation to launch a new product in which they would be the third branded market entrant within a maintenance treatment category. So as you can imagine, the challenge here was to really understand how we can unlock switching and capture lasting share in a somewhat crowded treatment category. We used and recommended custom panels and actually built two panels, one among physicians and another among patients and caregivers, to help guide our clients through this business question. And I think there are three key reasons why custom panels prove to be the right solution in this case versus going with a panel partner and I guess doing more traditional research methodologies. So first up is the inclusion of patients and caregivers. By planning ahead, we were able to build a panel of patients and caregivers, and just due to this disease state and physical impairment, patients are typically very difficult to include in research in this area. But by planning ahead, we were able to spend the time up front to recruit them and include their point of view. Secondly, through planning ahead, we were able to iterate through multiple phases with physicians. We did both qualitative and quantitative research, and that allowed us to deeply understand some of their attitudes and behaviors, and in particular, their hesitance to switch patients to the new treatment if they were already stable on another treatment. And then lastly, the key benefit is really around having a consistent team. We had a consistent team working on both the physician and patient caregiver panel. This allowed us to really take a step back and see the big picture. And what we learned is that on one hand, patients and caregivers were actually very excited about this new treatment because it provided a key benefit of longer time between treatment intervals. But on the other hand, we learned that physicians were, as I mentioned, hesitant to switch patients to the new treatment, even with this benefit. But by taking that step back, we were able to understand and iterate through the learnings and ultimately identify kind of the key to switching, which would be driving patient requests so that they ask their physician to switch them to the new treatment. And we also learned that once a patient requested the new treatment, physicians were much more likely to actually switch them. So kind of those three key benefits here really made custom panels the right solution versus going with a panel partner. And our client got a lot of really impactful learnings out of this initiative.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So, as you can understand, we've learned a lot along the way, and we want to share some key things that have helped us maximize the panel engagement. And, this is not all inclusive. So we welcome, anyone who has questions or wants to go at a deeper level with us on this. We're happy to provide some more thoughts on this. But, one key thing is to think about being flexible in your recruitment approaches. Again, I said, you may want to recruit at least twice as many people as you think you need. So be flexible in how you recruit. It could be through snail mail, email, phone, whatever it might be. But also you need to think too about regulatory requirements for disclosures and agreements. Our experience has been in the US, but this could be done outside of the US as well. So you do need to be mindful of regulatory compliance, not only in the US, but OUS. So in the US, a lot of times our clients have provided very clear guidelines for, blinding and unblinded research, and what to do if research is unblinded and what you have to do. If you're using a client list, there are some disclosures you're required to provide to prospective participants who wonder, where did you get my name? So just be aware that there are some compliance things that you need to be considering when you build the panel. So if you are going to be thinking about doing this outside of the US, some tips might be to consider using a partner that's local to the market that you are interested in. Have them, be able to, having the native language is important so that they are engaging directly with people. What you really want to do is establish trust here. So think about in each country having this set up where you need it, and consider the time to recruit. A local partner will certainly be able to help you and guide you along that path, because they know the market better than you may know it yourself if you're not as familiar in that market. Again, use technology to help you, whether it be Confirmit, Qualtrics, an Excel-based, all of that. But really, I think is something it may be helpful is you're trying to build a better user experience for these panelists. If you want a really good engagement response rate, as we have had, you have to have a white glove treatment. So run through your screener. Once you run through your screener, you already know who these people are. A high percent will qualify when you use your panel, and you're able to hand pick them. Pre-planning activity cycles is great, but sometimes we know research doesn't go as planned. So it's really important to, in order to maximize engagements, not let too much time pass between activities. So let's say you would plan for a monthly activity with the panelists for a year, and you found that, it's going in 2 months, 3 months. Don't let a month pass before having some kind of engagement with your panelists. Consider sharing information, not just stipends, in that time frame, just to keep them on board so they don't forget you. Just like I mentioned for OUS, having a local person is important in the US as well. So when we set up a custom panel, we have a specific person, her email address or his email address. We provide that to the panelists so they know if they have any questions, they contact Casey right away, and Casey's going to get back to them same day, really quickly. And they remember that. They remember that white glove treatment. Make sure you respond quickly. Having an FAQ sheet is also a great handy reference. So we've developed FAQ sheets right up front. So it puts all the terms of engagement really up front. Like, this is how often we plan to be in touch with you. And this is the typical honoraria or stipend that you would get. We plan to do this for the 6 month or 1 year or 2 year period. So these are things you've already talked with them, but it basically just puts it in a professional format, and it's kind of like your contract with them. So it establishes credibility for you as well. So, make sure you pay quickly as well. So people don't want to take a survey and wait 2 months to be paid. So just try to keep on top of that and, send out payment within, a week or two of completing the activities. And I think this will go a long way to building a panel that is, really high touch, and they trust you, and they're going to respond, maybe not every time because life happens, but certainly they're going to respond as often as they can to be able to make the project successful and follow up on their end of the deal.
I know we've covered a lot, so we're pretty close to the end at this point. And in summary, we just wanted to reiterate and hit on some of the really key takeaways we want to make sure you remember from the session today. So we've talked about how custom panels can address your need for agile insights by shortening time to insights. We've talked about the key benefits once you make that investment and develop a custom panel. Again, that speed, flexibility, and cost savings have really been key. We talked through many factors you should consider if you're thinking about establishing a custom panel, and ultimately the panel design really should be driven by the information and the business needs, including when you need it and who you need it from. And we also shared some real life examples of how we've successfully implemented custom panels repeatedly at KS&R. So if nothing else, just want to make sure it's clear that pre-planning for custom panels has many benefits, really allowing you to deliver insights rapidly and be the hero for end clients when they need answers quickly.
Yeah, and as we wrap up here, something to think about when you go back to your office, your desk, and ask yourself, in the past year or two, if I had had a custom panel, what more could I have learned by looking at the responses longitudinally? How much time could you have shaved off that timeline to insights delivery? What research initiatives could have been possible due to that shortened time to recruit? So is there research that was left on the table because you realized it would just be too much effort to get the information in the time that you needed it? So I'm sure there's many more questions here, but I think, this is a great solution in a lot of ways that maybe is underemployed, but it can be a real tool in your toolbox to have that. So we'd love to connect with you and find out how you look at this, and if you have questions, really love to hear your feedback on that. You can stop by our booth anytime during the month of April here during the conference. Leave your card and meet with us over coffee. Coffee will be on us. You can call or email us, and here's our information, and you'll be able to find us at the booth as well as 2 or 3 other colleagues that are also here at the Intellis conference. So we want to thank you for your time today. It's been a real pleasure, and we appreciate your interest and hope to see you soon. Bye now.
Thank you. Bye.